Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Good Gut Live. It is 2025 for us. For those of you watching later on, maybe in the Good Gut Live podcast, you know that already. But we are day 3 of 2025. So we're really excited. And with that, in this time of the month, we get into lots of diet culture, diet craze. We get into the gyms being packed again. We get into, people just feeling a little bit different, feeling like they need a change, and nutrition, health, and what you're eating plays a big role in that. So today it's our thoughts as 5 integrative registered dietitians, all here with Married to Health. It's our thoughts on, what are some of the best, I guess, parts of a diet habits, foods that make up this really great healthy lifestyle, healthy diet for 2025. So we're going to share our thoughts. We're going to get into some of the details. We're excited to just kind of dive into it. What I want to do is just give some context with this first and foremost, then I'll kind of open it up to everybody and everyone can share their thoughts on this. But why is it? Why is it that January is like the diet month, let's call it, or where everyone's like, I'm starting this new diet, I'm starting this new routine? And I think what tends to happen, like some of these facts is fact, and I will agree to this. In the past months, we're eating probably more treats than we usually do, right? I think we can all agree to that. In the past months, depending where we live, but for many of us, especially in the US, it's colder where we are, whether you're in Southern California or on the East Coast. You're getting snow or you're getting colder weather. For us, it's been California cold. It's been getting into the 50s, so we're like shivering with our jackets on. And then we tend to just get out of a routine. I know we were all talking about that. We're on vacation, some of us. Our kids are home for some of us. We're just out of our routine. And for me, that's been exercise routine as well. I've been really trying to stay on my exercise, but I've missed many more days than I usually miss. Can all this contribute to excess body fat, excess weight gain? The answer is yes. And the data is there for that. So by the time January rolls around, are we going like, I got to lose this weight, I got to do something different? So some context to that. And then I want to, do you guys agree with that? What are you thinking? Is that like a good quick summary of why January is like diet month, would you say?
Perfect.
You all agree? Yes.
Yeah, I think people like also the structure of time. Something
Mm,
new is about to start. I have a chance to do things differently. So I think psychologically, we like that idea. Okay, I can do different than I did last year because it's a whole new year. When in reality, it's just turning one day to the next day. But psychologically, we feel, oh no, I can do things way different than before and get different results too. So I think that
mhm,
that's a psychological component, and we can all take advantage of it, as we help our
mhm,
clients and even ourselves, do little challenges, as the new year start. But be smart, do smart goals so things are realistic. You have a method to implement different things.
right. Yeah. Yeah, and to that effect, I mean, everyone's method is a little bit different, right? Like we all have our own method. And I want to point out something as well. Like this is where the individuality and individualism of this is so important, where um maybe you're doing MNT, right? Medical nutrition therapy for a disease. Maybe you're like, oh, I just need to lose 5 or 10 pounds. Our reasons are all extremely different for why we are maybe trying to incorporate something new or take on new habits, or maybe you're visiting with a dietitian now, working with one of our awesome dietitians for a reason, right? And what are the methods you're going to use? Why are you doing this? Which is so important, and we all have our different reasons for that. So yeah. um
Yeah, and just to kind of mention a little bit onto what Maggie said already, I think psychologically it helps, and it also, I feel like it's a month where we have such lofty and hefty expectations that we go all in wanting to change all of the things, and then we can fall really short because
mm,
we burn out. We realize that changing habits it's harder than it than it actually sounds, or when we think about it, sounds really amazing and shiny and beautiful. But when it comes to the action part and putting in the work and the consistency and the effort, then we kind of can fall short if we don't have those goals that you were talking about, Maggie, with like sustainable, are they realistic, where are you starting, type of thing, you know, like, well, I never work out and then suddenly I'm just gonna start working out every day of the week.
Yeah.
I
Right.
don't know, you know, like, so just to mention a little bit about that, that sometimes we can go a little bit crazy with the new shiny object, the new year, and then fall a little bit short, because to make the consistent action requires a lot of effort and consistency. So even if it's just one thing that you can change, that it's sustainable and small, that you can
Exactly.
repeat throughout the whole year, it's better than if you're trying to change your whole life in 1 month.
Right.
You mean you can't change your whole life in 1 month? What are you talking about? One
I
one
know, I
visit,
wish.
one initial visit with a dietitian
Yeah, 90
will, that's
minutes.
all you need. um yes, that is an amazing point. So expectations, almost, right? Like, what are your expectations going into this? What is this, what are you expecting this diet or these changes or even this time of year what is it gonna do for you, right? How is it gonna be sustainable? It's so important. And then to get into that, what do you guys see, like, what are you, maybe you doing, tips you're seeing, things that are successful with patients that help them maybe go into this new year and really then even come out on the other end, as we, oh my gosh, I can't even think about the end of 2025. Crazy. But like, you know, what are some tips that can last through the year? And what are we seeing as some tips that are part of like a really great diet 2025 and beyond?
Yeah. One of the things I like to think.
I would love to jump it. Oh, go ahead.
No, no, go first, Damaris. Already spoke. I'll speak after you.
You're all good. Okay, yeah, no, we'll just tag teaming off of them. Laura specifically, I think like when it comes to new diets per se, there's this fantastic energy, but so I think a good starting point is trying to figure out, why am I trying to change things? Is this meaningful to me? And what is this decision to change grounded in? Is it because everyone starts a diet in January, or what differences is going to make in my life? Because I know with any visit, I always ask my patients, like, why are you doing this? Because if there's no reason yet, we need to find one to make this change last. And going back to the SMART goals, one of them is that it's relevant. So SMART, like specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So working with someone is very helpful, and just asking yourself, like, why am I making this change? Is it because my labs need to change? Like, if my cardiologist said, like, if I don't change things, this next year might be really bad for me. Is it because I've realized I don't feel well? And really, it needs to go to the deeper level. If it's superficial things, the odds of change are difficult. Change is difficult. So the odds of you like giving up when something is not grounded in a strong reason that is meaningful to you, the change will not stick. So I think that's an important starting point whenever I work with patients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finding
No,
the why, for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I agree, because it's so easy to be, I just want to lose this 20 pounds, and not realizing what that entails, not realizing what's underneath that, not realizing, okay, why, the why of that. And it's so easy to not look deeper, right? It's so easy to just be on the surface. It's like, it's just this weight. It's not my work schedule, that I'm working overtime constantly, that I don't see my family, that I'm unhappy, that I'm depressed, that and that causes me to eat more. I mean, there's so many rabbit holes that then we can go down, and it's so important to find that why, for sure. Yes, love it. Anyone else? Or Maggie, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention, even if you think of the meaning of the word diet, a lot of people have that impression, I'm gonna do something temporarily. Everything you do temporarily is gonna give you temporary results, right? If you actually look at the etymology of the word diet, where does this word actually mean? It originates from the Greek word dieta, which means way of life. So if you embrace a change as something that is going to become your way of life, then the perception is different. You're going to embrace that for life, right? You embracing something new that you're going to incorporate the way you live your life, a lifestyle change, right? And that's the true sustainable change, not just for January, but that you can carry on with you long term.
I love that. And it seems like, I mean, that's really our goal. Like I know many of us have patients we've been working with for years. And that's not to say like, oh my gosh, you've been working with them for years. You're failing then because they should just see you 2 times and they're done, right? Well, no, the idea is that every year they're better. And I love that point where it's like, yeah, it's their total lifestyle change. It's something they're doing for life. And that's not to say that, okay, they need to stop working with you, but every year they work with you, they're better and better and building on this lifelong foundation, right? This dieta, that's beautiful to understand the root word of that. It's not just this quick thing you do for 40 days and fast and or whatever this detox plan is for 5 days, 10 days. We hear so much of that. It's like, what are you gonna do for the next 10 decades, for the next 10 years even, right? And it's like, how is that gonna look for you? That is so important. Um, and just to point something out too, so many of us, so many of our patients and those listening and watching have chronic issues, have disease. How long did it take you to realize you had those diseases? How long have you been living with this chronic dis-ease? Give yourself some time, be patient with removing that as well as you kind of build these healthy habits. So it's not expecting, oh, I've had this disease for 20 40, 50 years, I'm going to get rid of it in 5 weeks. It's like, probably not, right? That the average person, probably not. So give yourself that grace, give yourself that patience and that time as you're building a healthy, long lasting diet, essentially, right? So,
Back to those real expectations again, I think.
yes,
Coming back to the
100%.
why, coming back to the expectations and where you're starting, because that's just your zero ground. And then you take it from there, not
Right,
from an ideal place,
right,
because that just will set you up for success or failure.
right, right. Yeah, love it. So important. Um, so any and what I would say to that too is, something I've seen, and that's really been a big start of our practice and everything we do here at Married to Health is taking a gut centric focus. So for us, it's really any diet, any change you're going to make, anything you're going to do. Think about your gut a little bit, right? Put your gut for us, like our big tip of making something sustainable is really getting to the ground floor, getting to that foundation. And for almost something new, we're kind of calling it, and something we're coining is like a gut focused diet, right? A gut centric diet, a gut based diet. We've heard of plant based diet. Now there's animal based diet, there's all this, but where can we all come together and just say, what is a gut based diet? And essentially, this diet that's going to say, I'm going to protect the microbes in and on my body, and it really does go beyond a diet, but I guess the root word of diet, where it's just this long lasting, lifetime thing we're doing, but it's going, what is my lifestyle? Does my lifestyle facilitate healthy microbes in and on my body? Because what we're seeing is microbes are really key to us thriving, right? Microbes are really key when it comes to our neurotransmitters, our hormones, how we obviously digest and absorb, how we feel every day, and even how we interact with our environment, how we detox. The list goes on and on. There's literally an gut everything connection, and it's for a good reason. And so it's going, okay, what does this mean then? What is a diet that is gut based, right? That is microbial based. What does that look like? And I'm sure we all have kind of some thoughts on that, but and we can get into that, like more of the details. But and for those that have been following us for a long time, I'm sure it's no surprise. It does contain plants, right? It has a big emphasis on plants. So that's cool. But I want to hear what are you guys seeing as like these on this kind of rule of lifelong tips, of sustainable tips, 2025 and beyond? What are some key ones that you've seen or that you have incorporated over your life?
I think something important to consider is, with this intention of making this a lifelong thing, what are things that I've been seeing in the news that are fads? Like, am I aware that what I'm trying to change is toward a fad, or is this considering like the research, the data? Is this helping me in all aspects of my health, metabolically, hormonally, my gut, my mind? Because when we're making a change, like Maggie said, like it should be long term. And so then also the effects that it carries, that this dietary change carries, should have long term beneficial effects in the most ways possible. And like James said, like when we think about the gut, that's where it all begins. Hippocrates said it. And as we consider this, plants are the foundation of that. And something that I know we love to talk about is the importance of fiber, microbes, and how deficient Americans are in fiber. I think if anyone tried to make one change, that would be a fantastic way to start. Just adding in like some soluble fiber that is more digestible, but just considering like, where is the information that I'm basing my dietary change coming from? Because if it's from TikTok or Instagram, is it from a dietitian? Fad, like, has this been going on in the last 2 years? Because we really should be careful with those kinds of things. That's where I would recommend people consider the long term, and where am I starting with what information?
I think too, building up what Damara said, is looking at like all these different diets that are out there and thinking about that idea of like, how can I make this a lifestyle, and confused of like, well, do I do keto? Do I do vegan? Or what are the different elements of the different types of plant-based diets? And really looking at like, what is the through line among all of these different diets? And for many of them, it is that incorporation of plants. And making sure, hey, do I have half my plate? Or maybe you're starting off with a quarter of my plate. Do I have any type of plant on my plate now? And knowing that that is something that's going to work to your benefit as opposed to the opposite.
I love that. And knowing that, for many listening that have GI issues, whether they know it or not, we're seeing it more and more on the rise: bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea, and leading into other issues or part of other diagnoses you already have, like diabetes or cardiovascular disease. We know GI issues follow kind of those trends and our comorbidities of that. It's going like, okay, eat more fiber, eat more plants, and that's wonderful. What if I can't? What if I have gene mutations? Some of the comments we got earlier, which we'll get into, is MTHFR and some other gene mutations, and kind of diving deep into that realm. And really, I mean, in summary, because we could do a whole episode on that, but really with that is knowing that your microbiome, even the word itself, is taking into account the population as well as what the population makes and how it affects your genes. So the beautiful thing, and why the tagline of Married to Health is heal with each meal, is that what the research says is with each meal, with each time you nourish your body, you can literally change your genome. We call it nutrigenomics. We call it epigenetics. This gets into the scientific nerdy stuff, but really the way your lifestyle, and why we're agreeing and why we love this topic and what we're talking about, is it being a lifestyle and a lifelong change, is that in that process, you can actually alter your genome. You can switch on and off these genes that we all carry. You can even affect the structure. So a recent study I was looking at was on histones and how the diet and the gut affects histones. And for those that don't know, histones are an intricate part of your DNA, of methylation of your DNA, of how your DNA wraps itself and turns into chromosomes. And part of the diets I'm seeing a lot of, I don't know if you guys are seeing this too. Oh gosh, I'm gonna blank on his name though, but it's the longevity guy who wants to live forever. I'm sure you've all seen him.
Yeah.
The guy that looks like
Brian
his son.
something.
Yeah. What does he say? What did you say, Laura?
He kind of looks like his son. I mean, he's took like, is that the guy?
Yeah. I mean, he got big. He has a Netflix.
Brian
I think
Johnson.
Brian Johnson. Yeah.
He was running an ad on, AG, what was that supplement? AG1?
AG1. Okay.
and he was running an ad about how now his products, he's like, instead of charging $70, that is AG1, now he's doing it all for like way less and way better. Like it's just, I don't know, crazy.
Yeah, well, and of course he has a new supplement now and everything, and it is part of like, I mean, his I've been seeing his ads like crazy too, and it's wonderful timing this time of year. But it's this idea like he was taking, I think, something like 200 plus pills a day, and he was able to put it into a powder, and then you're taking like maybe 10 pills with the powder to live forever. His whole thing is he live forever is his tagline and everything, which is a scary thought to live forever. But I get the whole marketing side of it. Um, but it's interesting because yeah, it's like, okay, where is this coming from, and what is he talking about? What is he promoting? But at the end of the day, it does kind of go back to our DNA. It does go back to this focus that so many have on longevity and living forever. And we're seeing, people talk about telomeres and your chromosomes, and if we could only prevent them from degrading, we'll essentially live forever. Will we become the sci-fi future, or one day we do that? Who knows? But it's interesting. I mean, there was a big focus on longevity. It is kind of like coming back again, where I think before the longevity thing was like fasting. Everyone was so into fasting. I think it was like maybe I want to say, man, time flies, but it was like 4 years ago where you were just hearing fasting this and fasting mimicking diets and fasting for longevity. Okay, and then that kind of died down a little bit. Gut health has always been big, and now we're kind of circling back to this longevity with this guy, and now it's on Netflix and a supplement and everything he's doing on social media. He's blown up, and it's like, okay, and what is it? Is everyone just going to take all these pills and powders? And I think he spent like millions and millions of dollars on everything he's doing. It's very interesting, but at the root of it, and a lot of the data is showing your microbiome, right? And then what facilitates your microbiome? It goes back to, yeah, fiber intake and eating your plants and your community. It kind of goes back to blue zones a bit, which is, I think, a more sustainable way to look at it, of going, are you in a healthy community? Are you getting hugs and connection, which is helping you feel mentally and even spiritually well? And then are you eating a diet that's majority plants, right? I think I think blue zone, and the blue zone, I guess you want to call it diet or lifestyle, kind of encompasses a healthier foundation of this than I think what other people are searching for, where it becomes very gimmicky, product oriented. I think it's like consume, right? There's that side of it, and then there's just this very natural, traditional, healthy side of it. But I don't know, that's what at least I'm seeing, and that's what kind of popped in my brain when you guys were talking about that a little bit. But any thoughts on that? But you guys have seen this guy. He's running tons of ads right now too.
Yeah, I've seen this guy. And also, I just wanted to share, when you brought up the topic, the first thing that came to mind, what's the best diet for 2025? The first thing that came to mind for me was a diet that you can tolerate. And it kind of goes back to your gut, right? Certain people, they will hear that, eating broccoli or cauliflower is healthy, which it does have nutrition characteristics that are really healthy. However, if you cannot tolerate them, it's just your poison, right? So it's just like being and having this type of awareness within your body of like, how am I feeling the food that I'm ingesting? Does it feel good? Do I have symptoms? Because I think that's basically the roadmap. If there's a way that the symptoms are telling you that you cannot tolerate certain foods, then that's going to lead you into asking more questions, and maybe even working with someone that can actually lead to the root cause, which often comes from the gut. Like if you have a compromised gut and things are just not nicely organized and tightly packed, then it's just the host for so many things that can just expand and create other difficulties over time. So at the end, it's the diet that you can tolerate, first of all. Second of all, if you cannot tolerate things, then working to seeing, okay, why and how can I support this part of my body? Because if our gut is compromised, then no matter what diet we eat, then we're not going to be able to absorb or digest the nutrition. Even if we're eating the good nutrition or the healthy nutrition or the nutrient dense nutrition, if our gut is compromised, none of that matters, because then nothing can be digested or even absorbed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it all comes back to, how's your gut health? How is the foundation layer of your health? It's like the first protection from the external world, where, well, not the first protection, but from food. It's what protects you from the outside into the inside. And it's such an intricate connection that if it's compromised, then it's just gonna lead into so many issues. And then the other thing that I wanted to add into what you were sharing, James, was, yes, it's not only food, it's also like the people that we surround ourselves, and also how many ecosystems or environments are we breathing in, because our biome not only comes from food, but it also comes from the air we breathe.
Yep.
And more than eating, we breathe a lot. We breathe all the time, in fact. So again, it's just tracking those things down. It's like, okay, well, how is my environment where I live? If I'm constantly breathing air that is contaminated or toxic, then our body is going to reach to a point of toxicity and burden that is just going to collapse.
Mm-hmm.
Or am I spending enough time outside? Am I going to inhale the plants around me or the waterfalls? Like, are you giving yourself enough variety, not only with food, but also with air and with people?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Totally agree.
Just coming back to the basic layer, and then everything else is a ripple effect, no
Totally
matter
agree.
what you choose.
And I even want to point out, I want to do two things. So I want to give an analogy, and then I want to point out, like, even, and then that we have a choice and a path, right? We can do the kind of the more consumerism marketing TikTok path of like, well, then you need a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, and you need a clear light sauna, and you need to do all these things. You need to go to an oxygen tank and do ozone therapy and all, because you live in a toxic environment. Or we can go the traditional route, like, hey, start a community garden that'll clean the air in your neighborhood. And like, sure, it's great to have air filters and do all these things and buy these things. They're very helpful, but nature has that kind of built in for us too, right? If we go that foundational level of what we're saying of like, be in community and connect and eat healthy and do these things that last a lifetime, there's also ways to clean the air and clean the soil and clean your environment and all that really don't cost much. Maybe it takes some time and effort, but both kind of sides do. And then I would say, like, yeah, and what Laura's saying in this analogy, and what we'll recap this, but what we're essentially saying is, have this diet in 2025 be something that lasts a lifetime, that you do for a very, very long time. In that, what we have to understand is we're all not starting from the same place, right? I think we can all agree. And the analogy I want to give is like, we're all, when we're born, we're this unique boat, or this sailboat. We say this a lot with patients. I know for anyone listening, we've probably used this analogy before. You've heard it before, but it's so important to reiterate. We're like, as we're being born, we're this new boat, and we're getting all of our parts from our parents before us. We're getting parts from their nutrition, their microbiome, and they've gotten their parts from our grandparents and our great grandparents. It's this beautiful thing that we're really all connected, right? At the end of the day. And this boat, some of our boats have more holes in it than others. Some of our sails are not as well built as other people's boats. And this just goes into that variability where, like Laura was saying, someone can eat a whole tub of broccoli and be fine. Others have, half a cup of broccoli and they're hunched over, and the methane gas and all the gases produced are just making them hurt and wrench in pain. What is that variability? Well, that variability comes from, what pieces of your boat do you have, and that goes from, did your mom have IBS, or was your great grandmother exposed to pesticides because she lived on a farm? This is heavily rooted in science as transgenerational effects, right? These are effects that happen through generations. And that is why you may find, I do everything perfect. I'm trying to be this perfect weight and I work out every day and I eat perfectly, but I still have all these symptoms. It's like it goes way deeper than that, right? And this is where everyone's boat is going to start out on a different part of the ocean, on a different speed, on a different wave, right? We're all on this big ocean, but on different kind of spaces and planes and going in different directions at different speeds because of the variability of our boat. So it's so important to kind of understand that analogy. Hopefully that analogy makes sense, and then go, hey, well, you've been given a different boat, but you can make repairs as you go. You can enhance the floor of the boat, the sails of the boat as you go. And the beauty of that is when you decide to pair up with another boat and make another little boat in terms of having a child, you're giving them more ingredients, more equipment, more of what they can use to sail even further than you've sailed, right? And it's this beauty, and we're all connected in this, right? So very cool.
So,
Totally agree.
James, what you're trying to say is that you're not doomed if you're having
You're
like
not
some
too.
holes in your boat,
Yes.
but yeah, you can regrow it, you can patch it, you can make it your own, you can make it with your own colors. And it's just, it really, like you said, you can turn off and on those genes. So it's not all dark and doomy. We can
Doom and
change
gloom.
things
Yeah,
and we can choose differently when we have the awareness. So, great
totally.
analogy. I appreciated it. I never heard it. So, thank you.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I'm glad. See, that's why I repeat things as much as possible because you never know. Um, what I want to show you guys now really quickly, and everyone can comment on. So I don't. U.S. News just put this out there, and Dahlia was a part of this, which is really cool. So this was their best diets overall for 2025, and this really does get into like they did a lot here. So it was a lot of research. They really broke a lot of things down. We won't get. I mean, this is definitely something you want to look into, and we'll have the link, but some of the best diets they're putting out there: Mediterranean diet, Dash diet, flexitarian diet, Mind diet, Mayo Clinic diet, TLC diet. I won't name them all. There's so many, but a lot of these, even the first five, what they have in common are really things that we're discussing, which is a heavy emphasis on plants, a heavy emphasis also on community. I know the Mediterranean diet gets into that, which kind of reflects some of the blue zone. Some of the MNT we've been talking about, really Dash diet was made as part of medical nutrition therapy for a lot of chronic disease as it comes to hypertension and cardiovascular disease. And the flexitarian diet is really like a vegetarian vegan diet, but more flexible, where you're eating some animals with that as well. So this came from a handful of doctors, dietitians, just kind of all. Let me see. I want to find that. I know there was a link to kind of show who was kind of part of this, but let me see. I think this is it. So it was like 21 categories. There were just experts from all over, including our own. So yeah, here they are. They're just experts from all over. Some of them very well known. Dahlia Marin is just so well known. There you go. She's right there. Wow, our
Whoop,
very own
whoop.
Dahlia.
Dahlia, shout out.
Wow, shout out Dahlia. So she's here as well. And David Katz, who's very well known in the industry. Just a lot of cool people here that were able to participate in this. Dr. Joel Kahn. These are just some of the ones I'm noting. I know Kylie as well. She's a really cool dietitian, always making some cool recipes on social media. I know as we go down, let's see. I know there's quite, you could see just how many. You guys all know Dr. Michael Greger, Dr. Neil Barnard. Yeah, just shout out to really cool doctors that have been in the space for a really long time doing some good work. Sharon Palmer, I recognize her. Yeah, a lot of people contributed to this just to really, I guess, almost like a informal meta-analysis in a way of just going like, let's look at all of these diets, all of this research, and really just give highlights. And if you guys look at the article, we'll link it below if you're watching this later. We'll link it below. where you can see the article and it really indexes all the diets, what they're doing, pros, cons, and just breaks it down. But you could see just how many diets were just there. But like we're saying, and the tip we would give you is finding the foundation, right? Finding the common themes, because there's so much information out there, so many diets out there, but finding these themes that run through that are really sustainable, that you can do a lifetime, that really really speak to you on where you are, what kind of boat you are right now, and not really comparing to all the other boats around you, like, oh my gosh, they have a speedboat and they have 4 sails, I only have 2. And it's like, no, where are you right now? And the hope is, and the good news is, you can add another sail, you can fix up your boat, you can improve. And again, it's improving year over year, not being like, I failed, time to start over. I failed, I got to start over. And I think that's the mindset we need to get out of when it comes to a new diet or a new year, right? It's let me build on what I'm doing that's really working, that is foundational, and continuing to do that year after year, right? So yeah.
I love that. I do want to add, thanks for mentioning little boats at one point. And someone commented on that as well. And we haven't really mentioned kiddos, but I think about it, like most adults would not want to encourage their child to do like diets, to go on restricted diets and then change in 3 months and do it again. And kind of like we mentioned right now, you're building them and you're building a child's life essentially as a parent. But I encourage you to think about this with your children too, because they're observing you. And if you are doing a diet trend versus a lifestyle, they're also observing that. But if you are like helping them to change their lifestyle, to add, and instead of a place of like, oh, we need to remove this, we need to change this, come from a place of abundance where we're adding and where we're enjoying this, and this is an exciting experience, you're really also not just benefiting yourself, but your kids who are always watching. So think about that sailboat, the little sailboats as well, and just think about the cycle that you're building or breaking, and what an advantage it is to come from that mindset and just build like a completely new cycle.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, kids are a great way to think of that, of like, wow, I get to build something new. I get to help. I know with our daughter, we've thought of that too, of like how we wanted to grow up, and with all the knowledge we've learned, and how we've upgraded our own boats. Oh, we want to pass that on, right? And to this little, yeah, you can think of them as tiny little boats on the ocean that we have to help, or really they're going to sail in between us for a very long time, and then eventually they go off on their own. But yes, I mean, that's essentially what we're doing. That's what we're a part of. All of us here, all of you watching, listening, come from a long line of people creating new people, right? And unfortunately, along the way, I would say, especially in the last 150 years, we've been hurting ourselves. We've been hurting our micros. We've been hurting ourselves in a way where, and now we're having, there's fertility issues, right? We're seeing that happen in real time. We're seeing this huge shift where it's harder to then make these little boats. It's becoming harder to be healthier as a big boat to help the little boats, right? In this analogy. But the hope is, and the reality is, and the science is showing that we can change this. We don't have to continue to go down this path, right? It's a lot of work, and all of you are part of that work, but it can definitely happen. So very important. I want to, and definitely everyone still please chime in. And there's still, I want to get to some comments. So we had some people also comment before this of what they thought was the best diet moving into 2025. Some said vegan, plant-based, and obviously our population is a little skewed to a more plant-based diet, but some said vegan, plant-based with many greens. Another said whole food, plant-based diet, which is just basically eating whole plants all the time, right? High raw, low fat, plant-based. Interesting. That's kind of more of like a plant-based cardiac diet for cardiac patients. Someone said high protein, low sugar, no dairy, and they said MTHFR driven, veggies and rice. So interesting. I know they had maybe a little bit to go on to list all the foods, but very interesting. So just that, and kind of along the lines, again, I want to make it clear, it's like you can be 100% plant-based, but from what we're seeing, the consistent message from some of the most well-known research in nutrition for over the last 100 years has shown a plant focus, and that looks different for everybody. But really, from the comments we're seeing, as well as what we're seeing from US News and meta-analyses, is like plants are there. And even as we mentioned, a gut-based diet is a focus on plants, but that doesn't mean you have to munch on raw broccoli every day, all day, right? And hurt your stomach. So there's definitely nuance there. I want to also show you guys.
And like you were mentioning earlier,
yeah,
you know, they may say, yeah, whole plants and all the plants and all of that, but if you can't tolerate them, that's not your diet.
Exactly.
Get to the point where you can tolerate them first.
Exactly. And that is so important. So tolerating these plants, right? Eating and tolerating is so important, which you can totally do and help your gut microbiome do this. So yes, that is a must. And that's where, to learn more, click below, marytalk.com. That's what many of our dietitians do, is to help you not just say, hey, here's what you do, but then the how to do this, to incorporate these lifestyle changes, to make them long lasting, to eat and tolerate more plants in your daily routine is so important. We do have this other question coming in. What diet can we do as ones with chronic illness, with MCAS, recurrent yeast, SIBO? So this gets really into like gut autoimmune, especially since plant-based for these are very difficult. So that is a great question. Definitely with a gut focus, but it's that question of like, you guys are saying all this, okay, healthy environment, healthy community, eating more plants, tailoring it to you, but I feel horrible. I have cancer. I have MCAS. I have diabetes. What do I do? I want to kind of hear from you guys. I mean, anything you've all experienced in that category, and then I'll kind of chime in after, but any comments on that?
I think that's why it's so important to work with a professional that specializes in the issue you have. I can speak, that I specialize in diabetes education. So we can focus on your situation. Everybody's different. So working with a dietitian, they're specialized in the area you're having issues, who's going to help to look at your particular history, your challenges, your skills, what are you trying to achieve, and then we're going to guide you through. And also having that understanding that it'll take time for you to get into that journey, and then you can, carry on independently. A lot of people, have the right expectations. Let's say when it comes to mental health, if they're going to start seeing a therapist, they're going to know, okay, this is going to be, I'm going to need help for maybe a few months, a few years, until I can, move on independently. And the same is true for learning how to shift the way you eat. A lot of people may come with the wrong expectation that we're going to give you a meal plan on day one and you run with it. So it's not like that. I think we need to break it down into small steps, getting to know the person that is coming to us for the first time, and developing a plan that you're going to incorporate little by little into small steps, to make it realistic, sustainable, and to get to the outcomes you're trying to achieve.
I really want to echo what Maggie said as well, of these are certain types of conditions where you need professionals as a part of your care team. You need dietitians, you need a strong physician or other people in your care team that you really trust and you really believe in working with, and that you feel understands you and is willing to kind of walk that road with you, versus somebody who just generally wants to feel better. Especially sometimes, and especially in the cancer space, going online can feel very predatory, where there's this person selling this kind of supplement, and then you go and try to find their background or their credentials and you can't find it. That's the kind of stuff where you really need to be wary of and take a step back and say, okay, this might work for that individual, but I also have my own unique needs, and I need to work with a professional to figure out even what those needs are so that I can move forward and see some sort of relief and what that relief looks like to that particular person.
Totally agree. Yeah, because I mean it gets deep, and specifically with MCAS and so many of these issues. So this is coming from Instagram where I'm seeing this comment. And a lot of these histamine related reactions where we dive deep, where I would say the average American, the average person doesn't realize, oh, there's histamine in food, and there's different sulfur components that make up our amino acids, and I mean there's so many areas of nuance that you can go into in nutrition. We just think of macros, we think of protein, carbs, and fats, and macros, and that's all we need to do. Calories in, calories out. It's not that case anymore, right? It can go so deep, and this is where it gets into a tailored therapeutic effect. But really the question is, okay, what kind of therapy do I want? Do I want symptom management, or do I want an integrative approach that dives deeper into root causes and really using that therapy to get to the root, and again have this be a lifelong benefit, a lifelong change that lasts and is sustainable? That is the goal for sure. So yes, when it comes to, so yes, I mean, and I'll just say, you can add on plants, you can help to tolerate these foods, you can kind of say, hey, immune system, calm down. Hey, whether you have mast cell activation syndrome and histamine intolerance and all these things, you could say, okay, let's everyone calm down. We can think of it as like the stove has been left on, a little bit of the house is on fire. Let's calm things down. And then the predatory nature is like the program is telling you to redecorate while this is going on. It's like, well, no, wait a minute, I don't need to redecorate my house, I need to put out my fire, right? So let's put out the fire first, and then we can talk about redecorating and rebuilding in a healthy, strong way. Or going back to the boat analogy, my boat's on fire a little bit, let's put it out, and then we can get back to sailing, right? And get back on track. So and with that, you need a firefighter, right? You need a professional who's used to putting out these fires, whose job it is to put out the fires and help you get back on track. So that is super, super important. One other one too, someone's asking, where can I find a resource that shares examples of gut healthy foods? So, I mean, marytalk.com, marytalk.com. So yes, we do have recipes there on our blog. We share recipes. We're going to be sharing a lot more. And then as you dive deeper and work with us, we have a bunch of recipes and meal plans that are tailored to really diving deep into these weeds that really we will share and trickle out more, but they are so specific and they need some guidance. So it's hard to just kind of put them out there and going, okay, figure it out yourself, because there can be nuance and context to it. And there are some recipes that are really helpful, but you don't want to stay on too long. The goal is to reverse eliminate, not just eliminate foods, right? So I want to say that again. The goal is to add on foods and reverse eliminate. So many have eliminated foods and demonized foods. Broccoli's bad, onions bad, garlic's bad, plants, we're hearing that still, plants are bad. It's like, no. We need to reverse that a bit in a healthy way to help you tolerate. So yes, but overall, marytalk.com, and feel free to reach out if you have more questions on that, with more recipes coming. And then I do want to get to this question too.
Before that,
oh
can
yeah,
I
yeah.
add something?
Yes.
I think it's important for people to know out there that although Married to Health is really heavily plant focused, it doesn't mean that just because you're not fully plant based that you cannot, that we cannot work with you, because
Totally.
we do realize and observe that some animal product in our diet is also beneficial, and at certain stages and moments in our lives, perhaps that's what we need to do first to get you to a different place, then start with the plants again. And so at the end, it's more about how much can your gut tolerate, right? You want to be able to have an array of foods for your disposal. Because I think I often find patients that feel a little bit like fearful or scared about, well, it's only plant based and it has to be vegan and it has to be whole foods. And it's like, yes, I understand. And just because you add a little bit of like animals in your diet doesn't mean, you can, that's within the allowance as long as you can tolerate it. Again, it's the same question that we were talking about at the beginning. Can you tolerate this food? How is your body feeling when you have this particular food? So just to put it out there that just because it says plant-based, it doesn't mean that we cannot work with other people as well. That is not in that way. In
Totally.
fact, many of the patients that we see not only eat plants, or at least the people that I've seen so far
Yeah.
have
Yeah,
a
I mean, we
combination.
we get people from all over. I mean, we have people through their insurance, we get people. It's crazy to think we've seen patients from all not all 7, but 6 continents with the exception of Antarctica, because I don't think we'll see a patient from Antarctica. But yeah, it's crazy to think. I mean, we have people from all walks of life, and in the US, I know the statistic is about less than or about 1% of the population is actually 100% plant-based or vegan. And so, yeah, majority of the patients we're seeing are not 100% plant-based or vegan, and they don't have to be. We're all about meeting you where you are and customizing care and it being very individualized to your needs. And then at the same time educating what animals do and what animals are, right? Where it's like animals are essentially middlemen in a way. Animals, for the most part, and a majority of animals that most Americans are eating are taking plants and absorbing them for you in a way, right? You can think of it that way. Cows are ruminants, so they're taking plants we normally really can't digest. We're not going to sit there and eat grass all day and hay, and don't get me started on other types of
We don't have
ruminants.
4 stomachs either.
Right. So we don't have like technically 4 chambers, in the stomach, right? But we can't really do that. And so what they're doing is taking these plants, taking the amino acids and the phytonutrients, and just absorbing them at a higher rate and higher frequency than we can, and a higher concentration. And then people are then eating the animal. But so we can then say, okay, well, what does that look like for everyone? Everyone's kind of different. But and then what are we seeing in the majority of the data? We're seeing that, well, higher frequency of eating plants, though, is going to be most beneficial, right? And especially when it gets into quality. So if this is something we can get into a whole episode just on that, that would be very, very interesting because there's so many factors to this of just what we've done to animals, how we treat animals, the quality of the animals. I mean, these middlemen do, the microbiome of animals. Don't get me started on that. Dairy and all. So if that's interesting to you, comment down below. We can dive deep. We can answer questions. We can really get into the nitty gritty, which might be fun to do and get into that. But yes, I mean, just know, and I think what Laura's saying and what we're all saying is you're an individual and we want to meet you where you are and make this your journey, not a stamp template. Hey, just follow this over and over again. It's like, no, it's completely customizable for sure. Yeah, that was great. And yeah, I think you did answer that question. Or go ahead, Katie, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think too, it kind of bringing up something that Laura mentioned with patients is sometimes that they can feel some sort of guilt associated with their food choices when they come and talk with a dietitian. And I believe I can speak for everyone at Married to Health that we have no judgment when it comes to our patients and what they're eating, why they're eating something. And our job is to provide that best evidence for them, weigh the risks versus benefits of certain food choices and other choices, and really meeting them where they are so that they can make those sustainable lifestyle choices. If it's getting them from 40% plants to 70% plants, and that 70% is something they feel really confident and they feel really good doing, and their lab work is great, and all of that, of those like goals that they're meeting are there, that's wonderful. It doesn't always have to be this 0 to 5,000, which is something that we've talked about before, especially coming in January, of making that change and having that motivation that many of us feel around this time, and really kind of honing in and reflecting on, how did I get here? Why do I want to make this change? What's realistic and relevant, like Damara said, so that I can make those goals and make it sustainable, something that you can do all year, the rest of your life, versus, do it for a couple of days or weeks maybe, and then go back to what you were doing before.
Yeah. And I have to say, as a red flag, I mean, just being fully transparent, if there's any like plant-based health professional that is making you feel forced to be plant-based at your own detriment, biggest red flag. Like if you're seeing a plant-based health professional, you're feeling like, I have to be 100% whole food plant-based and I feel terrible, and I'm telling them I feel terrible, and I'm not, something isn't right, and they're going, no, you have to do, biggest red flag, right? Like that is not okay. So yes, to clarify that, like that needs to be looked at further. Maybe not every plant-based health professional, or whatever they want to call themselves, whole food plant-based health professional, whatever the case is well versed in the gut microbiome, is well versed in autoimmune diseases, is well versed in women's health, is well versed in hormonal health. And so it's, again, not a one size fit all. We can't just stamp a whole food plant-based cardiac diet onto everybody and expect it to work for gut and hormones and women and men and kids. And no, we need to slow down there and really understand what's going on individually, and then make healthy recommendations where plants can still be a star, and we can increase, yes, over time on the person's timeline, right? It's like expecting a broken boat to race in this race, and if they don't get first place, you're a loser and you failed. It's like, no, right? It's like, it would be just as crazy to put it in that context as we do with our own human health, right, for individuals. So yes, going back to that analogy. But yeah, Maggie, were you going to say something?
One thought that came to mind is don't compare yourself with anybody else. Sometimes even social media is a big world that we may be looking at other people. Everybody has their edited life in social media, right? So just remember, every individual has their unique challenges, their unique assets, or strengths. So that's why we work within each individual, trying to bring their strengths and help with their challenges. And we are here, like Katie said, not to judge. We are here to help. When we ask questions, what did you eat today, is because we want to help and don't want to point, why did you eat this or that, right? We are here to help. We are humans too. None of us claim to be perfect, I believe. And life is it's a constant learning, right? And we don't look at things that went wrong as necessarily mistakes, but opportunities to learn from those areas that didn't work so well and continue to build, your knowledge.
Yep. Wow. Great stuff. I mean, again, so much more. Yes, I almost want to say, let's do a whole topic on maybe animals, and hear from all sides, and maybe get some other guests on for that as well. That would be really cool and fun. So let us know. Again, comment down below any topics, and if you'd like to see that. For those listening later, thank you for listening to Good Gut Live. You can find us on Spotify, on Apple, iHeartRadio, anywhere you find your podcast. And for those watching live, thank you. We're seeing your questions come in on Instagram, through YouTube. Mainly, we're seeing some questions come in, but also on Facebook, where you'll find this live as well. Thank you. Any other thoughts before we head out? I know we can easily do an hour or more on here, but it's always wonderful. But
I think if we can just summarize
yeah,
all of the things that we said, I think it would help the listener. If they don't want to listen to the whole thing, we can just give them like a little summary. So
if you skip to the end, and please feel free if I miss anything, anyone, but if you skip to the end, here's the summary. Diet is rooted in a lifelong change. It's not a quick fix. It's not something you do quickly, and it requires patience, which can be difficult. If you find it to be very difficult, you need help. seek someone whose job it is, who's a health professional, who's very knowledgeable to help you in this, and find these running themes in many of the diets we're seeing that really work and do great things. And one of the big running themes in terms of nutrition are plants, but others even go beyond nutrition to environment, to people, to community, to your mental and emotional, spiritual health. What else did I miss?
Just keeping those expectations in check.
Yes, expectations, right? Is your diet going to make you lose 60 pounds in a month before this wedding or this trip? You know, what are these expectations? Yes, so expectations as well. Are you going to be better in one visit with a dietitian? Very unlikely. So give yourself that grace, those healthy expectations. I think that was kind of the summary. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
very good summary.
All right. Well, beautiful. Well, as always, it's wonderful to be joined by our dietitians here at Married to Health. It's wonderful to just talk about these great subjects, and it feels like I mean, there's so much more we could dive into, but this is a good chunk for everyone to digest. And as always, you can find Good Gut Live. We're pretty much live every Friday, and you can catch replays at Good Gut Live wherever you find podcasts. And thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all for spending your time with us. As always, heal with each meal and feel with each meal. Until next time. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.